Hey Donovan, I recently found out a shocking secret about our government, and I've been wrestling what to do with that information. At first, I decided to keep quiet because I don't want to be on their radar, but it's been weighing on my conscience. I think everyone needs to hear this. My father was career military, and he was hardly ever home when I was growing up. As a result of this, I never really felt close to him. When he was home, he always had this stern look about him, and he would shut himself away in his study most of the day. Mom always told me not to bother him. He was trying to rest. So I grew up with my dad remaining kind of a mystery to me. I'm in my 50s now, and my mom's been gone for 5 years. Cancer. Since dad was all I had left, I tried to find some common ground in recent years, but things were always awkward between us. He didn't rebuff me. He was so quiet when I came over to visit. I would always wind up leaving sooner than I'd planned, feeling like I was crowding him. Things went downhill with his health 8.5 months ago. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he didn't have much time left. I made more of an effort to be there, and he even opened up a little, telling me some stuff about his childhood that I never knew. Nothing important, but it was nice to have him talk to me like a normal dad, reminiscing about the past. I'm thankful we finally bonded a little before he passed 42 days ago. My dad made the decision to spend his final days at home. I took a leave of absence from work so I could be there with him at the end. He was on morphine and in and out of consciousness for 3 days. When he was lucid, he seemed really sharp. His eyes focused and his words seemed to be chosen carefully. What I mean to say is, the things he decided to tell me during this period were not ramblings of a man on drugs. He told me there were things he had done in his life that he needed to get off his chest. Things he wanted me to know about before it was too late. My dad told me he had been part of a secret government branch known as the 4E. The mission of this branch was to evaluate threats to U.S. citizens from unknown entities, eradicate those threats, and employ any means necessary to erase the incidents. So 4E for entity, evaluate, eradicate, and erase. He said if citizens of this country knew what was living here among us, there would be mass anarchy, rebellion against the government, chaos. Stock markets would crash, crime would surge, people's faith in God would take a toll. I disagree, by the way. But my dad said during his whole lifetime he stood by that philosophy, doing things to protect our country and our way of life. Here are some of the things that he said have happened. There's an underground base in Colorado that has several alien beings who were taken alive from a UFO crash site in 1986. The government is trying to find a way to communicate with them. They are also testing their resistance to diseases that are global concerns. Dad said that he had seen one of the aliens himself, which was kept drugged and locked in a lab. He described it as looking just like all those pictures you see, grayish and short, skinny arms and legs, oval head, and big eyes. He told me they had to keep creatures dosed up with something because they have mental abilities to manipulate solid structure, but he didn't elaborate on that. Dad also said the government is aware of creatures that are hiding in the national forest. He told me it's assumed that they have been there since the beginning of time, and although over 6,000 have been eradicated between 1948 and 1995, the population is still thought to be pretty high. Upwards of 10,000. Okay, that to me was just staggering. He said he had been called in several times to strong-arm park rangers, who indicated they wanted to make the public aware of these creatures. He personally had to threaten several park officials with losing their jobs, and also had to imply that they would be prosecuted for treason if they went ahead and told. I think Dad felt bad about that part, because he went on about it a bit, threatening the rangers, I mean. The last thing he told me was there was a creature that had escaped from a government lab in the 60s and adapted to life in the swamps and the sewers. He described it to me. It sounded like one of those rake things people talk about. Humanoid, very pale, skittering around on all fours, big head, black eyes, and no nose. It moves very fast. He said one of the main concerns of 4E was that it preyed on human flesh. Apparently one had killed and partially eaten one of the doctors studying it when it escaped, so the population breeding in the wild was thought to be a real threat to mankind. I was totally shocked to hear all this stuff, But I tell you, looking straight into his eyes, I know he was relaying the truth. He was totally lucid. Dad was afraid to say anything until he was on his deathbed, but he was so worried about all these creatures as threats to human life. He didn't want me anywhere near the wilderness areas of the country, telling me it was unsafe. He said that there are thousands of disappearances in the national parks that are hushed up when the 4E comes in and deems one of these creatures responsible. If a body is found, the story leaks before they can cover it up. They say it was a bear or mountain lion. But if it's just a disappearance, and they think it was one of these creatures, they cover it up. The story never gets publicized. So I hope I'm doing the right thing. I know my dad wrestled with the right and wrong of telling. But lately, all I can think is, the truth is always the right way to go. May he rest in peace.